Hello, junkies. Welcome to Nocturnal Throwback, the podcast where we re-podcast the original Nocturnal audiobook, which I wrote and recorded and released a chapter each week back in 2007 and 2008. You guys, I just finished up the final draft of The Stone Wolves. This is a GFL story. It was slated for 40,000 words because that's what you call a novella. A novella is about 40,000 words. Now that it's done, this girthy, turgid, massive, swollen, thick, stiff book, it is 137,000 words. It's a beast! That would be 525 paperback pages. No, we don't think we're printing it. We're not sure. We'll worry about that down the road. Just want to give you guys the info. This is a huge book, you guys. This is a full-on, big kid-sized GFL novel. With The Stone Wolves almost complete, GFL 6 almost complete, and Mount Fitzroy almost complete, this year I will have finished 564,742 words of brand new fiction that you guys have never heard before. For perspective, if all of that content was one big fat paperback, that paperback would be 2,258 pages long. It has been a huge wait. You guys have been waiting so long for these stories, and you have been so patient, but I promise you that very soon we are going to deliver and reward you for said patience. That's all for now. No release dates at this time. We're still working on things. We'll give you more information as it comes available. More news to come soon. For the moment, let's dip into that river of time and go upstream to 2008. You are about to hear my original talkie talk from 12 years ago. And then Nocturnal Throwback episode number 33. Get some. Welcome to the free podcast novel, Nocturnal. This is episode number 33. Nocturnal is a podcast-only novel you can't buy in stores and you can't peek at the end. Written and performed by Scott Sigler. More information and more free stories available at scottsigler.com. This book contains adult language, mature situations, and lots of violence. Hello, junkies, and welcome to Nocturnal, episode number 33. It's getting close to the end of the story. I think you guys will all start to see that we are right near the final episodes. Now, that could be episode 34, or it could go a little bit longer, episode 35, possibly even episode 36. I'm not entirely sure. Hopefully, I'll be figuring that out in the next couple of weeks. Got two promos for you at the end of the show. One for the Legion of Lethargic Super Geeks, and the other one is a free podcast novel by James Melser called The Zombie Chronicles. I have added a bunch of the locations in this episode to the Google map of the nocturnalized San Francisco. If you want to see that map and get down to the street view of all the scenes from Nocturnal, that'll be in the show notes of scottsigler.com for episode number 33. You click on that link, a Google map will pop up, and you'll be able to walk through all the different fight locations, murder locations, even getting into the docks where the action is starting to lead us in this episode. The end of September is coming up, and with the end of the month comes the end of the two art contests that I'm running. Number one, for all you artist types to design the PUV James Keeling, also known as The Crypt, the main ship that will be featured in my podcast novel, The Crypt, which will be launching in November. If you want to learn more about that, again, scottsigler.com, look for episode 33, look in the show notes, and you'll see a link to that contest. That link will take you to the page that explains everything. You can design the ship yourself. You can send that link to other people you know who are artists and sci-fi fans who might want to get in on the action. Now, everybody who has heard the Crypt character stories that have dropped, everybody who likes the concept of the Crypt, you're going to want to check out those links too. There are right now 17 ships up at that site that different junkies and different artists have designed. Some of these things are so friggin' cool. All of you sci-fi geekheads will want to go take a look at these bad boys and vote, because you get to vote on your favorites. And I may take the most popular vote, or if one actually strikes me, I may wind up taking that because it better reflects what's going on in the story. But go take a look. It's really cool. And get your 2 cents in on what's going to be the headquarters of the Siglerverse in the month of November. A quick note that this episode brings back Aggie James. Now, you may be thinking you haven't heard from Aggie James in a long time, but the last 5, 6, 7 episodes of Nocturnal all take place in the same night. So although there were some inexplicable delays in getting Nocturnal out and getting the episodes out in a regular fashion, try and let your mind flash back to the last time you heard from Aggie and realize that this episode picks up almost right where that one left off. And now we've got the story so far from one of my favorite people, a key member of the Sigler universe, the roller derby queen herself, May Breakall. May is working on her own fiction podcast, which is going to be a podcast of fan fiction from the Sigler universe. So we've got a lot of people out there who have liked The Rookie, they've liked Earthcore, Ancestor, Infected, Nocturnal, some of my short stories, and people are writing their own fan fiction based on those works. Well, if you want a chance to hear those fan fiction stories podcast, you'll be able to send those to May, and she'll be picking the best ones to put into a new podcast stream. We don't have all the details for you yet, but May's going to tell you a little bit about it, and I'll be sure to inform you as we get closer to launching that project. So without further ado, let me introduce May, and after her, let's get rockin' with Nocturnal, episode number 33.
Hey, junkies. I'm May Breakall, personal assistant and favorite RDQ. That's roller derby queen, to our beloved FDO. But to you, I'm Junkie May, host of Junkie May's Chop Shop, the Scott Sigler fanfic podcast, where you write it and I read it. We will be launching October 1st and will be found at www.junkiemayschopshop.com. The website isn't up quite yet, because I've been busy with reading all the awesome submissions from fellow junkies. If you have written or are writing some Siglerverse fanfic and want to share it with the podosphere, please email it to me at May, that's M-A-E, at junkiemayschopshop.com. Now, I've made you wait long enough for this fix, junkies. Let's review with the story so far. The long, final night of Nocturnal continues. Aggie James, the street bum kidnapped by Marie's children, was ordered by Hillary to deliver a special nocturnal baby to a good home. After he left the underground caverns, Aggie was arrested. Both he and the baby were taken to San Francisco General Hospital. The hospital is being evacuated due to a shootout between Bryan Clauser and the dog-faced monster Pierre, giving Aggie a chance to find the baby. Because if he doesn't, he knows that Hillary will make Aggie do the groom's walk. Sub-Chief Sean Robertson is in the middle of a frame job on Bryan, who is now wanted for murder. Pookie suspects that Robertson ordered a hit on Robin Hudson, and will soon do the same for Pookie, Black Mr. Burns, and possibly occult expert Mr. Biznass. Pookie ordered Black Mr. Burns to get Biznass to safety by any means necessary. Bryan, Pookie Chang, and SFPD cop Big Donda Murphy just watched Robin Hudson die at her apartment after a close-quarters battle with the monsters Clyde the Glide, Spidey, and Bonehead. Clyde and Spidey escaped, but Bonehead is still in the apartment in handcuffs. With her dying words, Robin made Bryan promise to watch out for her dog Emma. As Bryan sits with Robin's corpse, Pookie knows he has to get his friend out of there before more police arrive.
Black Mr. Burns didn't bother trying to find a parking spot. That would have been a wise way to keep a low profile, but speed seemed to be the higher priority. He worked through the North Beach traffic and the late-night partying pedestrians, then pulled into a driveway and stopped directly in front of a garage door decorated with a sign that read, "No parking, violators will be towed!" Exclamation point. He'd be back soon. No worries. And if the owners got pissed, well, he had a badge and a gun, and that tended to make problems go away. B&B walked out into Columbus Street. He checked his iPhone map. Corner of Columbus and Vallejo was where he was headed. He looked around and spotted a garish neon sign, a red and blue eye in hand decorated with the words "Fortune Teller," right above Alfonso's Bakery. He walked up the stairs, leaving the street noise behind. He opened the door, not bothering to knock. A woman sitting in a chair, palm out, on top of a table covered with a red velvet tablecloth. Her hand lay next to a blue crystal ball. On the other side of the table, a man dressed in red and blue robes, sitting in a throne-like chair. None other than Mr. Biznass.
Who the hell are you?
San Francisco Police, B&B said. Ma'am, I need you to leave right now. What? The woman said. Why, you conservative pig! I'm getting my poem read. I have rights.
She has rights, dicker, pricker, fucker, sucker.
John sighed, then pulled his gun.
What are you doing, faggoty, fuckety thing?
John shot the blue crystal ball. The glass didn't shatter. It cracked, and blue water spilled out on the red velvet tablecloth. The woman screamed and ran for the door. John graciously stepped aside.
Fucking Gestapo, shitty.
Oh, man, give it a rest. I ain't got time for this shit. You just come with me. You got 5 seconds. Then I cuff you and I beat you like Rodney King.
Are you here to kill me?
No, man. Pookie sent me. The man stared for a second. John reached for his handcuffs.
Fine. I'm coming.
The man pulled at a string on his collar, and the robe fell away. Beneath, he was wearing a blue button-down shirt and a red tie. He reached behind the throne, pulled out a blue velvet blazer, put it on, and walked to the door. Black Mr. Burns followed him out. The sirens were getting closer. Pookie's heart ached at the death of his friend, but someone had to take charge or things were only going to get worse. Bryan still held Robin's dead body in his arm. He was in no condition to think, and that left it to Pookie. Big Tonda Murphy stood in the doorway, just past the prone big-headed dude who had his hands cuffed behind the small of his back. She didn't know what to do either, it seemed, so she just stood and stared. Pookie tossed her his car keys. She caught them. Tonda, hurry out front and tell those 2 guys in the black station wagon we're headed to their place. Then drive my car a block south to Jersey Street, park it, leave the keys under the driver's seat, and then get back here. But I'm first on the scene, Pooks. I can't leave. Sure you can't. You thought you saw someone head to the back fire escape. You ran that way. You looked around, you couldn't see anything, and you came back. You got it? She nodded, then pointed down to the big head. What about him? I think he's coming with us, Pookie said. Tonda nodded again, then took off down the hall, surprisingly fast despite her weight. Bry, Pookie said. Man, we gotta go. Bryan didn't get up. He held Robin's head to his chest. Emma was still in her lap, whimpering from pain, alternately licking Robin's face and then Bryan's. The man didn't seem to notice. Pookie knew they had to leave her body. As horrible as that was, Bryan could not be found here. 2 dead bodies, 1 a dead cop, and Bryan was already wanted for murder. The chief and the sub-chief wanted him dead, just like they'd wanted Robin dead, and probably like they wanted Pookie dead. Bryan, Pookie said, we gotta go. Bryan just shook his head. Other than that, he didn't move a muscle. Emma kept licking his face. Pookie wondered if Bryan's prints were anywhere in the apartment. He ran to the sink and grabbed a dish towel. Robin's blood was all over Bryan's hands. If he leaned against the floor to stand, the bloody prints would firmly put him at the scene. Maybe Pookie could find some dirt on Robertson. He didn't know. Something to show the sub-chief had planted Bryan's gun at the Parkmeyer murder scene. But if forensic evidence placed Bryan here, well, then his best friend was fucked right and proper. The sirens weren't far away now. As soon as uniforms entered the building, it was all over. Bryan, get your ass up! Bryan still didn't move. The man's left arm hung limply. So Pookie kicked it. Not too hard, but hard enough. Bryan's head snapped around, his eyes narrow, full of pain and hate. Bry, get the fuck up! If you want to get the fuckers that did this, then we have to go, now! Bryan stared at him for a few seconds, a few long seconds where Pookie wondered if his friend might just snap. Then, using only his good right arm, Bryan gently laid Robin down on the bloody hardwood floor. Emma slid off the body, landed on the floor, and yelped. As soon as Bryan let go, Pookie grabbed his right hand and scrubbed at it with the dish towel. Bryan had blood all over him. All of these clothes would have to be disposed of. Pookie was no forensics expert, not by any stretch, but hopefully he knew enough to cover things up. Bryan stood there, not moving. "What now?" he said. "Now we get the fuck out of here," Pookie said, "and we take him with us." Pookie nodded towards the big-headed man laying in the door. The big-headed man that was starting to move, starting to moan. Bryan looked at him as well. His head tilted down as he stared, eyes narrowing into the cold look of a killer. He pulled his right hand free from Pookie's scrubbing towel and slid it into an unseen slot in the sleeve of his left forearm. Then he pulled free a long, narrow knife. Bry, don't," Pookie said. Bryan's left arm hung limp and useless as he walked towards the big head. Pookie grabbed Bryan's right shoulder, trying to stop him. It was like trying to hold back a draft horse. So strong. Pookie actually slid a little in Robin's blood and had to let go of Bryan to regain his balance. Footprints. Fuck. They'd have to get rid of the shoes as well. Big Head lay face down, just starting to regain consciousness. Bryan put his knee into the small of the man's back. "We need him alive," Pookie said, knowing full well he couldn't stop Bryan from doing anything. Nor, really, did he want to stop him. "Pooks, pick up the dog," Bryan said. Then Bryan leaned forward, out past the prone man's head. "And you big-headed fuck, you awake?" The man moaned. He tried to look up, turned his disgusting, oversized head. "Hey," Big Head said. "I don't recognize you, but get me out of here. Get these cuffs off of me." Bryan smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. "I think we'll keep him on. Makes it easier for me to do this." Bryan leaned back, pulled on the handcuffs, then stuck the point of the knife through the man's left palm. The man's beady black eyes widened in shock and surprise, and grew wider still when Bryan pushed the knife all the way through until the point slid into the back of the man's right hand, and then the bloody tip punched out the right palm. Bryan leaned down to talk in the big head's ear. "You feel that special burn? That means you won't heal from this shit. If you keep quiet, the knife stays in your hands. You make any noise, it comes out, and it goes in your mouth and right down your throat." Big Head's eyes blinked tightly shut, then opened wide. Bryan nodded once, as if everyone understood, then grabbed Big Head by the back of his neck. Bryan stood, effortlessly dragging a man that had to weigh over 200 pounds. "Pooks, I told you to pick up the dog." Pookie realized he'd just been standing there, staring. He knelt and gently picked up the whimpering, bloody, black and white Emma. "Where's your car?" "1 block south." "Follow me," Bryan said, "and keep up." On the same city block but 4 buildings away, tucked into the darkness of a flat black rooftop, Spidey and Clyde watched 2 men exit the rear fire escape of the building where they had both almost died. The tubby Chinese guy carried a dog. The other one, the one in the black pea coat, he carried Bonehead by the scruff of his big neck. Sirens filled the air. At least a dozen cop cars were already in the front of the building or very close. "Go kill them," Spidey said. "My hand is all fucked up." "Your face ain't so good either," Clyde said. Spidey reached up with his good hand and pressed the flap of skin against his forehead. "Seriously," Spidey said. "Man, go kill those fuckers." Clyde extended his left arm, exposing his chest and ribs. "Not really feeling up to it, Spides." Spidey leaned in for a look, moaning in pain as he did. "Oh, man, fuck me. Man, you've been shot." 4 times, I think, Clyde said. "Fuck, man! Why didn't you say something?" "I had to save your ass, my brother," Clyde said. "Whoever that guy is, I'm not going after him all fucked up like this." "But who is he?" Spidey said. "Now, I was kind of out of it from that dog and all. Oh, thank you for killing that fucking thing, by the way. What a fucking monster that thing was. Don't mention it. Anyway, I was out of it, but I felt something. Didn't you feel it? Clyde nodded slowly. Yeah, Peacoat is one of us. So why the fuck did he shoot you? I don't know, Clyde said. They sat motionless, watching the two men walk through the backyards that made up the center of most San Francisco blocks, then slide down an alley between two apartment buildings. They exited onto Jersey Street, looked around for a moment, then started walking towards a shit-brown Buick. Peacoat was too far away to feel that warm feeling of family, but Clyde hadn't forgot it. So what do we do then? Spidey asked. We heal up, Clyde said. We gotta save Bonehead! Spides, I can barely breathe, Clyde said. I think there is a bullet in my right lung. Maybe two. I cannot fight that guy right now. I'm not even sure if I can aim straight. So what then, man? What do we do, just let him go? Clyde thought for a moment. They couldn't just let him take Bonehead. Call Firstborn, Clyde said. What? Shouldn't we call, King or Sly? Clyde shook his head. Just call Firstborn, and do it fast. He'll tell us what to do. The boat moved ever so gently. It was hard to even notice it from inside the cabin, but Firstborn had to adjust his stance a little bit to accommodate. The three crying humans tied up on the floor didn't seem to notice. One human wasn't tied. He stood there, staring, a hand on his nose doing little to stem a constant flow of blood. The man's idyllic evening on his boat at the Golden Gate Yacht Club hadn't turned out quite as planned.
I'll start with your little boy,
Firstborn said, pointing his pistol at a black-haired boy of no more than 7.
Then your wife, and then your daughter.
The man looked at each of the potential victims in turn, the fear on his face visible despite the bloody hand. Then he looked over at Tricky Dick, who sat on one of the cabin's tan-colored couches, sipping a Heineken he'd taken out of the boat's small fridge. Then he looked at Servo and Fort, who really didn't fit inside the low-ceiling cabin. Like Firstborn, Fort had to bend over just to fit inside. The twisted little Servo actually kept a tiny malformed hand up in the ceiling to make sure his head didn't bump against it when Fort moved. The man looked back at Firstborn.
Okay, whatever you want. Wherever you want to go.
Just take us out into the bay,
Firstborn said.
Are you familiar with the Jeremiah O'Brien?
The man nodded, making more blood drip onto the cabin's carpet.
Yeah, that old Liberty ship out on Pier 45.
That ship sails tonight,
Firstborn said.
Wait for it to come by, then follow at a distance until I tell you different. Do that, and your family may live through the night. Now take us out into the bay.
The man looked down at his family one last time, then walked to the ladder that would take him up to the bridge. Firstborn nodded at Tricky Dick, who followed the man up. He had to hand it to this family. They were quite brave in the face of danger. Sure, they cried, but they weren't screaming. They weren't panicking. That was almost unheard of. Too bad it wouldn't make any difference. Hopefully, he could get the whole family back to the tunnels. The little ones would love to hunt these children in the caverns. His cell phone buzzed. Firstborn holstered his pistol and pulled out the phone.
Did you get her?
Yeah,
Spidey said.
but man, we were attacked.
Firstborn felt his anger rising.
Attacked? By a man in a pea coat?
Yeah, how did you know?
The same guy attacked the king at the hospital.
Oh no,
Spidey said.
the king, is he?
He's fine.
Firstborn said, disgusted at Spidey's fawning tone. Everyone had fallen for Rex's little show.
He was hurt. So were Sly and Pierre. But they're headed to the meeting.
Firstborn, who is this guy?
I think he's another savior. Sly said he got Erickson out of the hospital.
Another savior? What do you mean? There's more than one?
Firstborn sighed. He should not have said that word. Damn superstitious kids.
What I mean is, he helps the saviors. He's just a man. Where is he now?
He's getting into a car.
Spidey said.
He's got Bonehead.
Anger and now frustration. These kids couldn't handle anything on their own.
So go get Bonehead and kill the man.
I'm hurt, and so is Clyde. The guy shot Clyde all up and shit.
Ask Clyde if he can still fly.
A pause.
Yeah, I think so.
Listen to me carefully. Clyde needs to follow them. You two stay in touch on your phones. You catch up with Clyde when he sees where this man takes Bonehead. Do you understand?
Yeah,
Spidey said.
but come on, can't you come and help us? We need help.
The yacht's engines gurgled to life.
No,
Firstborn said.
I've got to take care of something else. You call me when Clyde finds out where they are going. And if you cannot reach me, you make sure that Peacoat does not reach the Jeremiah O'Brien.
A longer pause.
But what if that means we have to take him on ourselves? Dude, he's a fucking savior.
If I see him, then you will do the groom's walk. And not with 6 arms, Spidey. You'll do the walk with no arms, 'cause I'll tear them off.
Firstborn hung up. The boat started to back out of its slip. Firstborn sat down and stared at the black-haired, softly crying little boy, wondering how he would taste. The Russians walked down Pier 45 like they owned the world. And right out in front, Dmitri Vasilov. Chief Zou wasn't happy to see him, and she was only a little bit relieved. She now owed Old Man Zobakov a favor, but she didn't care. She knew she had little chance of seeing her daughters alive again, and if Vasilov hadn't showed, it would have been no chance at all. The massive bulk of the Jeremiah O'Brien rose up to her left, the tops of its cranes and communication masts barely visible in the nighttime fog. Behind her, the metal walkway up to the O'Brien's deck. To her right, a long building that ran the length of Pier 45 and held the bizarre Museum Mécanique. She'd taken the girls there once to see the museum's collection of turn-of-the-century arcade machines. The old glass-encased fortune-teller mannequin had scared the hell out of Tabs. Myrrh, of course, had loved it. She had to save her daughters, no matter what it took. She'd seen their files enough times, and she knew these men. Oleg, from L.A. Bad news. Sviatoslav, Arseny, and Vyachik. She didn't know much about them, only that they were Russian mafia from Europe, and even worse news than Oleg. She reached into her jacket and pulled out a silenced Browning 9mm high-power. She let the gun hang at her side, but Dmitri stopped anyway, only 15 feet away from her. "We have no guns," he said. "Old Man Zobakov was very specific." "I'll see for myself," Zou said. "Face down, all of you. Lace your fingers behind your heads." Dmitri stared at her. The other Russians looked at each other, some laughing a little. "How do I know you not work for Italians?" Dmitri said. "How do I know you don't put bullet in back of Dmitri's head?" She pointed the Browning at him. "Because if I wanted to kill you, I'd just do it right now." "This gun you hold is not even legal," Dmitri said. "All kinds of goodies in our evidence locker, all from pieces of shit like you. Last chance, Dmitri. Get down, or I'll just kill all of you and get this over with." Oleg laughed again. "Boss, this Stuka can't be serious. She is all alone. She won't do fuck." "Tell that to Gennady," Zou said. "Oh, wait, you can't, because he's dead. So is Igor the idiot." Oleg stared at her, then looked at Dmitri. "Boss, is she true?" Dmitri nodded. "That is what Old Man Zobakov said." Dmitri started to kneel on the pier's pavement, but Zou stopped him. "Oleg first," she said. Dmitri looked annoyed. He waved Oleg on. Oleg smiled at her, then walked forward. He knelt and lay on his stomach. He laced his fingers behind his head. She kicked his feet apart. She held the Browning in her right hand as her left hand felt up and down his legs. "If you want to give me special tickle, I don't mind," Oleg said, and laughed yet again. Amy stood, took one step back, then launched a kick that put the point of her shoe right between his spread legs. He let out an explosive groan, then rolled to his right, eyes slammed shut in pain. She stepped forward and hit him in the mouth with the barrel of the Browning. He rolled to his back, hands clutching his balls, blood pouring from his lower lip. "Enough," Dmitri said. "No one else will disrespect you. You have my word. Oleg, mudak, get back on your stomach." Oleg slowly did what he was told. She finished frisking him, then sent him limping back to the others. Dmitri was next. True to his word, none of the other men said anything. When she was finished, she pointed up the metal ramp that went about 2 stories up to the deck above. "Go on. Once you're on deck, turn right. You'll see a sign for a gift shop next to a door. There are stairs inside. Go down them. At the bottom is a meeting area. Chairs are set up. You and your men sit in them, stay there, and keep your mouth shut." Dmitri nodded once. He wasn't smiling with his mouth, but something in his eyes showed malice, even anticipation. He and his men had no weapons, so she didn't know what the fuck he could be so confident about. He would probably die on this ship, and she didn't care. The Russians walked up the ramp, disappearing from view. Now all she had to do was wait for Lanza. Aggie James thought he looked pretty good. Damn good, actually. He should have been a doctor, 'cause he sure looked like one now. The hospital wasn't in total chaos, but it was in enough disarray that he'd been able to slip through the halls without being stopped. Finally, he'd found a door marked Doctor's Lounge. Inside, a room filled with couches, chairs, tables, a small fridge, and lockers. No people. Some of the lockers were hanging open. A pair of pants and a shirt here, some shoes and a white coat there, and he was good to go. The stuff didn't fit perfectly, but close enough. He even looped a stethoscope around his neck for that extra doctory look. He had to get that baby. If he didn't, he was screwed. Aggie squared his shoulders, took a deep breath, and tried to remember an ages-old truism of the world. If you looked like you belonged, if you acted like you belonged, you could get away with just about anything. He walked out of the lounge and followed the signs toward the maternity ward. He knew he was close, as evidenced by the stream of nurses and orderlies rolling baby-filled incubators down the hall into an elevator. "Hold on!" Aggie shouted, then ran up to the elevator. The nurses turned and looked at him. One even held the door. He slid to a stop, almost falling thanks to shoes that were 2 sizes too big. Only one of the babies had the deep black skin of his charge, and that one wore a little pink jumper. A girl. "That John Doe that came in yesterday," Aggie said. "Has he been taken out yet?" The nurses looked at each other, some shrugging. "Oh," said a nurse with frazzled blonde hair peeking out from under a scrub cap. "I know that one. No, I think he's still here." "Thanks," Aggie said, and ran away from the elevator. More babies passing by, some being carried, some rolled in the big incubators. And then Aggie smelled him. He stopped dead in his tracks. That smell, that powerful smell. A fat nurse pushing an incubator. Aggie looked inside and saw the most perfect child the world had ever known. "This is the John Doe," Aggie said to the nurse. "I'll take him from here." She looked surprised. "I have him, doctor. This is the evacuation plan." "I said I have him." She squinted at him, like she was trying to find something familiar. "I'm sorry. Who are you again?" "That's quite enough, nurse," Aggie shouted. "We are in a crisis situation here. I'm not going to argue with you while patients are in danger. Now go get the next child before gunmen reach this floor." The other universal truth of the world: the louder you are, the more likely that people just want to get away from you. The nurse let go of the incubator. Aggie grabbed the push bar, rolled it forward, and walked quickly to the elevator, fear raging through his body as he waited for the nurse to scream for help. But she didn't. The elevator opened, and Aggie rolled the incubator inside. He pushed the button for the lobby. Other people came to enter the elevator, but he held up a hand. "Critical patient," he said. "Take the next one." The people stopped, confused. Aggie fixed them with his best cold doctory stare. The doors closed. He fiddled with the incubator until he found the lid. Then he opened it and gently lifted the baby. The child opened its little eyes and looked at him. Aggie's heart melted. The elevators stopped, startling him. The doors opened to the ordered confusion of the ground floor evacuation. There was no one waiting for him. He stepped out and looked around, then started walking for the door. No one stopped him. He made no eye contact as he walked outside into the parking lot. 23rd Street was just ahead. Aggie James held the baby tight and walked out into the parking lot, leaving the hospital behind, the child's scent filling his nose. And there was episode number 33. I hope you enjoyed that, junkies. Episode 34, we're going to put Frank Lanza on that ship, and then the good times are really going to start to flow. No sponsor this week, but would like to remind you that you can go to scottsigler.com/preorder. That's one word, PREORDER, and you can place your order for Contagious, the hardcover, the sequel to Infected, that will be out December 30th. I've got pre-order links for both audio and for the print version in hardcover. Also, you can pre-order the Infected paperback that will be out October 14th, 2008, and that contains 50 pages from Contagious. So if you just can't wait to see what happened to Perry, you can go to scottsigler.com/preorder. You can get your copy of the Infected paperback and get a sneak peek ahead of all the other junkies who are going to wait till December 30th. Now, in case you're wondering which of these products best benefits General Seglerissimo's plan to take over the entire world, it's totally up to you. The most important thing that you can do for me as a junkie is either pre-order Contagious or buy Contagious the day it comes out on December 30th. That's the single most important thing to do to advance Siglerism. If you want to do a little more, well, you can go buy the Infected paperback. Be warned, though, that's the exact same content that's in the Infected hardcover, just plus 50 pages as a sneak peek from Contagious. The paperback does benefit the General a little bit, but only if you can do both the paperback and the hardcover for Contagious. However, I want to put this one in front of your little junkie minds. If you go buy the paperback, you can carefully read the 50 pages from Contagious, get your sneak peek, then you can give that paperback to someone as a Christmas present. Oh yeah, you're re-gifting your own gift to someone else, and you're getting your junkie fix at the same time. That just makes me want to tap 2 or 3 friggin' veins, cause it's such a friggin' good idea. Now let me dump those 2 sweet promos on you. I'm out of here for this week. Talk to you soon.
The Legion of lethargic super geeks discussing comics, one trade at a time.
We talk about comics and sci-fi.
Hours by Bryan Michael Bendis and Michael Avon Omen.
But that's not the real reason we picked it. It's because you love Bryan Michael Bendis.
The real reason is because I'm Bryan Michael Bendis' bitch. This is true. So anyway...
does he have a restraining order against you?
Probably. No.
There will be.
We talk about TV and movies.
Did you get a chance to see the new Hellboy movie?
Yes, I did. You sort of appreciate that after certain other directors just like to just force the CGI down your throat.
I have no idea who you're talking about, George Lucas.
I like seeing someone treat elves and trolls completely different. That's your D&D background. I think you know who to go after now. And had the movie sucked, that would have been the height of its sucking.
The Legion of Lethargic Supergeeks.com.
I did not get that. See, I like it a little more now that I know that backstory. I still don't like it a whole lot, but I like it a little bit more.
This fall, writer James Melser brings you his first ever full-length podcast fiction novel. The Zombie Chronicles. I guess I should go back a bit and try to explain things so you know what the hell I'm talking about. In a world 20 years ago, things were peachy keen. where zombies and humans coexist. All that changed, though, after the asteroid, the big pie in the sky, and clones are used for food. The first time I saw myself being eaten, words cannot describe what was going through my mind. One man will do the unthinkable. I'm going to help the next one escape and uncover a secret that will change our world forever. That's insane. Why on earth would you want to do that? The Zombie Chronicles by James Melser. Let me tell you something. When you see a 6'2", 250-pound reanimated corpse come at you wearing nothing but a football helmet and his rotting schlong bouncing from side to side, you run. Feel their rotted teeth, strong as a vice, clamping down on your jugular and ripping it from your throat as if it were cotton candy. The Zombie Chronicles, beginning September 1st at www.jamesmelser.net. Somewhere in the bottomless pit of my memory, the scream is still going.
You have been listening to Nocturnal, written and performed by Scott Sigler. For more information, go to scottsigler.com. All music in this podcast provided by Uncrowned off their album Devils and Angels, available now at the iTunes Music Store.